Hey, my name is Chris Stratton, and I have helped thousands of people build wealth through buying and selling real estate. And today I'm going to talk about one of my favorite topics in the whole world, which is negotiating. So, one of the times that I learned how powerful being an expert negotiator was when I was on the other side of a negotiation, and there was a lady, man, she was just hammering us. But the reality was she was doing it with a smile, and she was doing it with the most friendly voice ever. So I was like, man, she just delivered really hard news, but like I still liked her way she was delivering it. Whereas one of the times when I was first starting, and again, there's the word sophomoric, right? Sophomoric means that you have essentially enough knowledge to be dangerous. And that's where I was when I first started my real estate career. And I was listening to some of the gurus about negotiating, and I was coming hard at people, and I was the hammer. And if I knew I could negotiate from strength, which is one of the keys in negotiating, that I would just come hard. And so I learned this lesson the hard way when I was early in my career. I was negotiating for a friend, and this agent didn't have any other offers, and I just said, you know what, this is what we're going to do. This is the amount we're going to take, and I need your answer in the next 3 hours or pulling the offer. And I just had been listening to all these classes on negotiating, and I was like, man, I'm hard, being the hammer. And essentially, I look back on it, and I didn't like who I was at the time, but here's what was the killer piece, was somebody else submitted an offer on that same property. She ended up taking the same price offer, same terms, conditions, just because the other person was more likable. And that right there taught me a lesson. Why the heck am I gonna just be this unlikable person? That's not who I wanna be. It's not who I wanna work with. And just be more like that other lady at the beginning, where you could deliver the hard news, but just be friendly and nice. I mean, even if you're saying, hey, there's a 3-hour deadline, which we always recommend doing if you're working as a buyer's agent working on a listing, we still understand you can do it with a smile, and you can be nice about it. So sometimes it's not what you say, it's how you say it. But it's actually, the reality is in negotiating, it's both what you say and how you say it. So with that said, so here are the keys to being a great negotiator. 1, be likable. People want to work with people that are likable. You just want to clash with people that are jerks, right? Don't be that. Now, I mean, I was that on that negotiation, and it didn't go well for me. It didn't go well for my client, and I learned a good lesson to say, and Chris, be the person that you'd want to negotiate against, and also be the person that you'd want to go through a transaction with. And so that one helped me a lot. Number 2 is there's a term in negotiating called anchoring. You don't want to say the price first, right? So anchoring is you just put an anchor out there, and then you let the other person go with it. So this is why if you are a listing agent, what you want to do is you want to get the other side to anchor, right? You have already kind of anchored when you put a list price out there, but if they're interested, the buyer's agent will call you and say, hey, my client's interested, but I think they're looking for closing costs, and they're looking for a lower price, and then the buyer's agent, if they're a good buyer's agent, will say, do you have any flexibility, right? They're not giving a number, they're asking you to re-anchor, or the phrase in negotiating is to negotiate against yourself, which you never want to negotiate against yourself. Please never negotiate against yourself. And so the listing agent wants the buyer's agent to anchor. So the listing agent will say, just send me offer, we'll take a look. You know, we're open to any offers, right? And we'll take a look. And when a good buyer's agent will continue to ask questions until the listing agent gives up something, a good listing agent will just continue to say, just send me the offer. It's this game of chicken where you're trying to get the other person to anchor first. And thankfully, a listing agent has a little bit more control and can essentially just say, send the offer, we'll take a look at it. But a good buyer's agent will skillfully negotiate those waters. So anchoring is one of the biggest keys. And some of the negotiating courses, they say he who speaks first loses, or she who speaks first loses. This is what anchoring is. It's speaking first, right? And so you want the other person to anchor with that. So that's number one. Number two is you want both parties to be on the same side of the bench. So whenever I'm teaching negotiating, I always say, bring them to your side of the table, because what you'll see is this word picture of these two sides locking the horns. I guess this isn't horns, but close enough. Locking the horns. And when they lock horns, nobody wants to move. Just imagine if I'm putting my hands up, you put your hands up as well, and I start pushing. What do you want to do? You just want to push back. And so we're pushing back and forth against each other. But what happens when one side pushes and the other side just goes back, right? And doesn't push back? Then there's nothing else you can push for, right? You've already pushed. So when you can just say, hey, we're not in a pushing match, why don't we both sit on the same side of the table? And this is one of my phrases that I love. My seller wants to sell the house, your buyer wants to buy the house. Let's just be the adults in the room, right? You always call to their highest vision of themselves. Let's be the adults in the room and see if we can come up with a price that works for your buyers and works for my sellers, right? And that's the whole idea right there. And then it was like, yeah. And then you also need to speak to what they are looking for. You need to say something along the lines of, hey, I know, we get paid when we sell real estate. Reminding them that they have a vested interest in getting a deal done. Their buyers want it, our sellers want it. They get paid, I get paid, all of us get paid together when we make a deal happen. So let's just be on the same page instead of fighting this out. And what it does is it lowers the guard, right? So with that said, there's one other piece that I love to think about when we're talking about the guard being up. And I've seen this a number of times when I've sat in a room with somebody and all of a sudden somebody starts getting, not necessarily hostile, but starts getting a little bit more feeling like they're playing the game. I need to be a strong negotiator here. You just change the subject. I love it. If I'm in a physical room with somebody, I look around, I look for a painting, a piece of art, a picture of children, being like, oh, that's awesome. Where did you take that picture? You just bring down the tension. I don't know if you're like me, but honestly, there are definitely times where my tension goes up, and anybody that comes at me is going to lock horns with me when I feel like I'm, in the midst of a stressful situation. So when you can just bring down the tension, all of a sudden everything is just so much better. And actually, it goes along with one of the key closes in selling, right? It fits very well with negotiating. It's called the doorknob close, right? If you're meeting with somebody, and they do not want to side with you, right? Usually there's a reason why. And if they haven't told you the reason why, if they say they need to think about it, they don't do any of these other things, the reality is they don't necessarily think about it. What it is you haven't given them all the information they need, and therefore, or you can't provide a service that they want. But either way, if you can't answer how you can help them because they haven't told you, then there's a problem there. Well, this is called the doorknob close. It's when you close your computer, close your bag, and you start to walk out the door, all the tension has left the room, and you just say, hey, and they call the doorknob close because you touched the doorknob, and then you turn around and just say, hey, I feel like there was something that I didn't answer well. What is it that you were wanting to think about? And at that point, the tension has left the room, and they're not going to be as cagey. They're going to just tell you. And so that's what happens if you're negotiating. Let's say you're at a title company closing a transaction, and something happens where the buyers walked in and something was wrong with the house, and you're in the room together, and everybody is locking horns, and you're just looking for a way to say, okay, let's bring down the tension and go. Actually, I heard somebody once say this, when the tension gets high, it's like somebody's swinging you should duck and then tickle, right? Like you need to make them smile. You need to make them laugh. You need to get rid of the tension in the room so that you can have a real conversation. So with that said, you got to work on your skills when you come to negotiate. These are just a couple of the key takeaways to being a good negotiator. But the last thing I'm going to say, I'm going to finish with this piece, and this is one of the most important pieces. If you understand what the other side wants, you can be creative, because oftentimes the other side just wants one way in. But if you understand, okay, timing is important, convenience is important, whatever the other pieces that the other side wants is, you can go in, you can give them what they want, and at that point, when you solve people's problems, you make the most money in the world. That's what negotiating is all about. So if this has been helpful for you, please click the like, subscribe, be a part of our community, a part of our world. Post in the comments if there's any questions you'd like me to answer, or if there's other topics that you'd like to go over. I'll tell you what, especially in negotiating, I love these topics, but we have a ton of other topics on our channel. So like, subscribe, be a part of the community, and let's go kill it. Boom.